Hello there, crafty doer. Jessica Michaels here, hoping you had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. I did. So, my followers on Instagram said they wanted to see me bust my paper stash for this week's project post. So, I busted my paper stash. I also found inspiration from a pretty unexpected place. If you want to find out what that place is, head on over to my blog, craftydoings.com. And also, if you don't follow me on Instagram, do that. Do that now. That way you don't miss the midweek sneak peek of the weekly project post and also the midweek sneak peek challenge, where I challenge you to create something from a photo that I take of my aftermath of the weekly project post. So I like to art journal in Ranger's Creative Square Journal by Diane Reevely's Dilutions. The cardstock in this journal is great for mixed media. It's thick enough to hold mediums that I use without bleeding. However, as good practice, I usually almost always prep my pages for mixed media journaling with some kind of medium like gesso, or in this case, I used Mod Podge. I trimmed up the edges and I cut off the corners to straighten out the page, getting it ready for Tim Holtz Distress Texture Paste. This stuff is really cool. I used it on a Tim Holtz Stamp and Stencil set that I got from Stampers Anonymous. The result looks like snow. It's so beautiful. It's so pretty. It's just what I wanted. The paste is really cool. You can add tint and color to it with alcohol inks. You could use the Distress watercolor pencils. I've also used spray stains. You can color this texture paste when it's wet, before you apply it, or even after you apply it when it dries. It's super cool mixed medium to work with. So I wanted to keep the snow contained in the center, but I loved it so much that I ended up spreading it out everywhere. So now I'm going to work on my focal point. And so I grabbed scrap paper. I spritzed it lightly with water before putting it into Sizzix Lumber 3D Texture Embossing folder. Then I grabbed some ink in Vintage Photo and I blend some on top around the edges to help bring out all the detail. I love these embossing folders. I've said it before, it's worth saying again. This one is the typewriter 3D textured fades embossing folder. The detail in these are crazy. I love them. I wanted to keep this typewriter piece as white as possible. So I grabbed Distress Embossing Dabber and just lightly dabbed whatever was raised, which for the most part was the letters. Then I used white embossing powder to add some gloss and just a little bit of glimmer to it, not too much. Like I said, I wanted to keep it pretty white. I wanted a little more shimmer, so I sprayed some mica on it. It was perfect. I loved it. So then I spritzed some water on my journal page and then some spray stain in antique linen. Grabbed water with a paintbrush, moved it around. I thought it was a little much, so I picked up the excess with a cloth and I was happy with it. So this stencil here is a really cool one because it can be like snowflakes or stars. It is by TCW, the Crafters Workshop. And then I grabbed their Stencil Butter and Champagne Cold, which is one of my favorites. It is the first one I've ever obtained when I started exploring stencil butters. It's so beautiful. It could be a focal point or it can be an accent on any of your projects, I think. So I used some foundry wax to kind of spatter everywhere. I didn't like the way that it fell, so it was a little too, I know I was going to say clean, even though it doesn't look like it. But so I just spritzed some water on my glass working surface grabbed some water with my finger and splattered it around everywhere. It gave it more of a distressed look, which is what I was really going for. Once I heat air dried that, you can really see the metallic shine. It was really pretty. I liked it. So then I have some empty spaces I want to kind of fill in. So I grabbed some stamps by Tim Holtz and just kind of stamp around. As you can see, I put together the centerpiece that I'm going to use. So I was kind of eyeballing where the empty spaces needed filling. So I ran the cluster centerpiece through the sewing machine for a black zigzag. The cluster consisted of the typewriter scrap paper, the lumber scrap paper, and also a piece of ribbon, shiny gold, pretty ribbon that I had in my stash. This is a little tiny town that I designed and I'm providing for you for free. If you just go to the blog, craftydoings.com, you can find the free downloadable cut file there. I'd love it if you tag me. If you post it on IG, let me know so that I can see what you create with this tiny town that I really, really like. So I adhere that with some glue, and then I go ahead and just put the centerpiece cluster, which consisted of the typewriter scrap paper, the lumber scrap paper, and also a piece of ribbon, shiny gold, pretty ribbon that I had in my stash. I splattered some white watered down acrylic paint, and then I grabbed Tim Holtz mummy cloth to just make a little knot and put it right down. One thing you won't see me do here that I kind of went back and did was I added more distress texture paste on top of the tiny town and on the bottom, like sitting snow. I thought, magical, right? So I love that. And then I also sprayed some spray stain on top of the watered down acrylic paint and mixed it up with a paintbrush and just kind of tinted like the edges. Lastly, you'll see a sentiment that I created with a draw and cut feature on my Cricut. I thought it was just really beautiful and fitting for the Thanksgiving holiday. So I appreciate you stopping by and watching my video. I hope that you enjoyed the project. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. And again, follow me on Instagram if you don't already. Check out my blog, craftydoings.com. You can see previous weekly project posts. You can also grab your freebie and the links to all the products that I use. They're clickable links. They'll take you straight to the product so you can purchase. Thanks again for stopping by, and I'll see you at